What if? What if the man that you show the world isn't who you truly are inside? I had a quote many years ago from Brené Brown. She said, "Vulnerability is our greatest asset." I've been in the world of motivational speaking and life coaching for a very long time. And for most of that time, I've been wearing a mask. For most of that time, I've been pretending to be something I'm not. I've been performing. I've been projecting. I've been hiding. And I've now got to a point in my life where I've realized it's time for a change. And what if you right now, what if there's an area of your life right now where you're hiding? What if there's parts of your life where you're wearing a mask? What impact is that having on you? How is that affecting you? How is that affecting you knowing that you're performing and projecting and keeping up appearances for other people, but on the inside, what if you feel like something's missing? Perhaps right now maybe you're in a job. Maybe you're in a job you don't enjoy. Maybe you've got to a point in your life where you're like, is this all there is? Maybe you're now intrinsically tied to your financial situation to your self-worth. I don't know where you are right now, but my assumption is you want to be somewhere different. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be watching this video of a complete stranger 90 seconds in. So my assumption is where you want to be is somewhere where you have more fulfillment, where you have more, you feel like you're who you truly want to be, where you feel like you're not wearing a mask. The purpose of this channel moving forward, this channel, you may have seen it, other videos I've done, this channel's about to change. This channel is now going to be more aimed specifically at entrepreneurial men who, maybe like me, grew up without a father. Or maybe you had a father, but you didn't feel an emotional connection. Or maybe you had a father with an emotional connection, but maybe you got lost somewhere along in life. Maybe you followed the path that your dad or your father told you to follow, and you've realized that path may have given you success, but it hasn't given you fulfillment. I was just the other day hearing the story of the son of the founder of Baskin Robbins. And he was talking about how he was offered everything. He could have literally followed in his father's footsteps and built a business, billion-dollar empire, following through on Baskin Robbins. And he made a decision. He made a decision when Baskin, I think it was two partners, Baskin and Robbins, when Robbins got ill and died. And his father, who was the Baskin half, decided that he was going to continue on, almost ignoring the fact that the reason why he died was because he'd eaten so much ice cream. And I don't want to kind of butcher the story because I don't remember. It was in a Gaia documentary that I watched the other day. But the son made a decision. And the decision was he was going to leave that billion-dollar empire and go and forge his own path, because he knew that wasn't the right path for him. He felt that there was a conflict of values, because he knew that although he was selling something that people wanted in ice cream, he knew that wasn't good and that wasn't healthy. And he didn't want to be a projector of that. It didn't feel right. So to cut a very long story short, he went off and forged his own path, and he wrote books about health, many of which were against kind of his dad's wishes, because it was a real conflict of what his dad was projecting out into the world with his ice cream empire. And then his dad got really ill. And completely serendipitously, his dad at one point was in a doctor's surgery being given a kind of a diagnosis of what he needed to do to look after his health. Really high blood pressure. He was really ill. And the doctor gave him a book. And unbeknownst to him, it was his son's book. And the dad didn't let on to the doctor that he knew it was his son's book. But in that moment, he realized maybe there's something, maybe the fact that the doctor had given him his son's book is like, well, if it's given to him by a doctor, it must be real, must be good, even though his son had given him a signed copy years before. But I tell you that story, it's just literally popped in my head. But for a very, very long time, I have gone through my life wearing a mask. I've gone through my life performing and projecting with a hope for people to accept me, validate me, and approve of me. And all it's done is, although it has gained some of the approval of other people, I've lost the approval of the one person that matters most, myself. And fundamentally, I have lost myself. I've lost myself to the world. I've lost myself to other people. And I've almost become a shell of myself and have effectively become a clone of everybody else. I don't want to butcher some of the personal development mentors that I've listened to, so I'm not going to reference any names, but I've listened to everyone you can possibly imagine. You know, hey, even in the beginning of this video, I quoted Brené Brown, right? I've spent so much of my life listening to other people. And there's a sense of irony in this video that you're maybe now listening to me. But the point of this video isn't for you to listen to me and for you to idealize this message. The point is for you to realize that if you're still watching this video 6 minutes in, maybe there's something in the message. I'm a Christian. Whether you're of faith or religion or not is irrelevant for what I'm about to say. But I do believe that every message that is ever put out into the world fundamentally goes back to the beginning of time, whether you call that the Big Bang or God, whatever you call that. So nothing that's said is new or original. Everything is just a regurgitation or a reinterpretation or a readaptation of something that's already been said. But I think there's the most important truth that you'll ever find is the one that's inside of you. And if there's a voice inside of you, if there's been a voice inside of you for a while that's been nagging, that's been telling you something needs to change, you need to look at something, you need to pay attention to something, maybe that's a sign. I've got a good friend of mine, great friend of mine, always looking after everybody else, always putting the oxygen mask of other people on rather than his own. Maybe you've heard that expression before, right? You know, they say on an aeroplane, when you get on the plane, make sure you put everybody that you love, make sure you put their oxygen masks on before you put your own on. It's not what they say, is it? It's not what they say. They say put your own on. He's been putting everybody else's on, and now he's got incredibly high blood pressure. And I don't think he's at a chance of dying right now, but he's not in a good place. I won't mention his name for privacy reasons. From my early 20s up until now, I've had really bad eczema. In fact, at the time of doing this video, probably for about the past 18 months, I've been wearing makeup. Now, I am brown skinned, but you might see it in my face, but I've got around here and around here, I'm wearing makeup. The reason I'm wearing makeup is because there's imperfections in my face that I'm not happy with. And it's just become a default pattern for me to put makeup on. And I'm willing to admit that. There's something I feel very powerful about admitting where you've been wearing a mask. Whether it's a metaphorical mask like some makeup, or whether it's just an emotional mask. Like pretending, performing, projecting that you're feeling one way and you're really feeling another. One of the things I've by the way, I don't mind saying this to you, but I've got my daughter's I've got my daughter's iPad here. I've got some notes because there were some things I wanted to talk about in this episode. One of the things I wanted to talk about is this concept of be high versus the mask, and what we call emotional cultivation. See, for a lot of my life, I've been either high or wearing a mask. And a few years ago, that kind of came to a head. I'm married, by the way, married with 2 children, been with my wife for about 10 years. Better get that right. And about 2.5 years ago, we started to have some really bad arguments. We really started to have some really bad conflict. And one of the things that came out of that, because one of the beautiful things about my relationship with my wife is whenever we argue, something good always comes out of it. Like we always realize that, you know, we're not the problem. What we're arguing about is not the problem. There's something deeper. And we always get there. And the realization was that I was not talking. I was not cultivating what I was feeling. I was suppressing my emotions because I'd modeled that from my upbringing. You know, my mum hid her feelings. If she was either high or she was wearing a mask. You know, I remember catching her crying. many times as a child, and I'd say, "Hey, Mum, are you okay?" Because I could feel that she wasn't, and she'd say, "I'm fine." And so I modelled that, because as kids, that's what we do. We model our parents, right? So a few years ago, I joined this thing called a men's group after I'd had some therapy. And I realised that the biggest thing about the therapy that I enjoyed was just talking to anybody other than my wife. And what I mean by that is my wife had become my life coach, my therapist, and my wife. And that was affecting our connection, our intimacy, because she was doing too many things. She just needed to be my wife. And so I joined therapy, and I realised as I was talking to this guy in therapy called Sean that really what I needed was just to talk with men. And I had friends, but I felt that friends would probably give me advice. And I just didn't feel that I needed advice. Going back to what I said at the beginning about listening to lots of mentors and personal development, I was like, I don't think I need advice. I've got enough of that. I can get that on YouTube or listen to a podcast or an audio, right? I don't need advice. I need someone to listen. I just need to talk. And I found this thing called Men Speak, founded by a guy called Kenny Marmorella de Cruz. I recommend it. I'll share with you the link in the show notes. And I just started joining these groups. And one of the things I found is that the more and more I spoke about how I was feeling, the more I was able to feel the things that I thought I wasn't meant to feel. The more I started to feel sad, the more I started to feel like deeply unhappy. But in a weird way, I was feeling happier than I'd ever felt. It was like, well, this is kind of gross, but if you think about like an impurity in your skin, like we call them, like in England, we call it like a spot, right? Once that pressure's released and that's out, it's like the toxins are released from the skin. And it kind of felt like that. It kind of felt like a back that's out of alignment and a chiropractor puts it back in. It's like once the sadness, like there's a saying I've heard in the past year, which is you got to feel it to heal it. Once I was allowed to feel, it's like it started to heal. It's like it finally allowed a wound to heal. And although I was feeling more sadness than I'd ever felt before, it wasn't like suppressed. Because when it was suppressed, it was turning into anger. And I knew that anger wasn't an emotion that I was meant to feel a lot of. And I truly believe that the reason why, if you ever feel anger, anger is merely a sign that your emotions are being suppressed. Kind of like keeping your finger on the kettle and not allowing it to boil. So I joined this group, and lo and behold, I started to feel more sad, but at the same time, I started to feel joy. I'd not felt joy since I was a kid. And so I realized that actually what I was now doing is I was now cultivating more emotions. Because in society out there in the muggle world, you're either meant to show the world that you're good or you're meant to wear a mask. That's just because the generation before us, that's what they did. That's what they did. And so that's what we thought we were meant to do, because we model our parents. They're our first role models, right? So as I now realize that what we need to do really is to cultivate more emotions, it's made me realize that the more that you feel what you feel, the more you can heal what needs healing. So I could kind of go further on in this particular video, but I feel like that in and of itself is a really, really big step. So my biggest thing I recommend to you on the end of this video is to think about, where are there some areas right now where you're wearing a mask? What are some emotions that you don't allow yourself to feel? When was the last time you felt sad? When was the last time you cried? Do you get angry? And do you ever explore where that anger comes from and what might be behind the anger? And no, I don't mean like the person that cut you up in traffic, because that happens. But often when things like that happen, it's always something deeper. Do you allow yourself to feel, and do you allow yourself to go into that place, which is the shadow part? Do you allow yourself to do that? One of the ways I recommend you can do that, one of the ways is therapy, joining a men's group. Another way you could do it is breath work. Somatic breath work is a really powerful way, because that deep diaphragmatic breathing really can help to bring up and evoke emotions that might be trapped and laying dormant down inside of your body. Some of the breath works I've done, like hour-long breath works, by half an hour in, I'm like literally lay on the ground and I'm in tears. So I highly recommend that you take some time to really just explore, are you feeling all the emotions you want to feel? Because this is especially to those of you that have got kids. If you have a child, my guess is you would want them to feel whatever they're feeling. Because if they don't feel whatever they're feeling, at some point they're going to grow up. And at some point they're going to be in a relationship. And something is going to happen that is not ideal. And if they don't have the full range of emotions, they might pick an emotion that might cause harm, might cause a problem. I believe a lot of people that are incarcerated, that are in prison, maybe they didn't get the opportunity to cultivate their full emotions. So instead, they used an emotion, the only one that they know and they saw, which might have been violence, which might have been anger. And if only they'd been allowed to feel what they were feeling, then maybe perhaps they would have been able to express themselves in a healthy way. And I truly believe that if we want to raise healthy children, if we want to raise healthy young adults, we've got to be the role models and we've got to show people how to feel. How do we do that? Well, we've got to feel what we're feeling to heal what we need to heal. I hope this video served you. I hope it's been helpful. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed it and you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. There's going to be more videos coming like this. That's it for today's one. I'll see you next time. God bless. Take care. Goodbye.